Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing a powerful Ultra League team that a battler has used to climb consistently up to top 50 in the entire world on the GO Battle League leaderboard. Now, these battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Danny's, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now, Danny's team is as follows: Clefable lead, Shadow for Alligator save switch, and Unova Stunfisk as a closer. So Clefable, Unova Stunfisk, not a core one really thinks of when it comes to the Ultra League, but in this particular instance, it proves to be a very powerful duo. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and unfortunately there's a core breaker in game number 1, leading Clefable into Steelix. Now, of course, you would much rather see this Steelix on the Unova Stunfisk, as Stunfisk is able to triple resist Thunderfangs. Clefable is going to launch a Moonblast, that's going to connect. The opponent is overfarming quite significantly. No shield from Clefable, it can tank whatever's thrown, and it is going to be the Earthquake. There's an aggressive switch into Shadow for Alligator. For Alligator will immediately be debuffed with a Psychic Fangs, or actually a Breaking Swipe from the Steelix. Breaking Swipe does get the 50% chance at an attack drop, and the opponent sends in Gastrodon. Now, this is a very important part of the team. The Feraligatr save switch does a terrific job at luring out Mud Slappers, well, the most common Mud Slapper, of course, being XL Gastrodon, to free up the XL Unova Stunfisk to be a core breaker in the endgame. In comes Clefable, Clefable throwing one Fairy Wind and the Swift. Swift does not do a lot of damage, but this is going to be enough to pick up the KO. In the back is a Shadow Drifblim, and with the Gastrodon out of the way, the opponent is about to get absolutely swept by a Stunfisk. Stunfisk able to land the Mud Bomb, opponent now in a range where the second Mud Bomb will be able to pick up the KO. They are just going to let it go. They are going to try and sweep this endgame with a Drifblim. But unfortunately for the opponent, there's no way Drifblim is ever going to be able to clutch this. Because even if they do apply some debuffs here, oh my goodness, and they don't even get to do that. That's a devastating catch of an Icy Wind onto Clefable. Clefable will get farmed down, unable to make the Moonblast, but this game is still very much over. Icy Wind shielded up, and with shields to hide behind and a Drifblim rapidly running out of health, there is just no way forward for this opponent. They're going to stay in and play it out to the bitter end, but the writing is definitely on the wall in this game number 1. Discharge connects, they need the double up Icy Wind, and they're just never going to get there. Hopping into game number 2, Clefable versus Walrein, a type neutral lead. Ideally, my guess is we're probably going to see some chip with the Clefable and Clefable tanking a move before Shadow for Alligator will hit the field of play as the safe swap. Clefable more than happy to no shield tanking whatever they throw, and then we should see the Feraligatr switch in, and there it is. Feraligatr hits the field of play. Walrein does have enough for an Earthquake here. Does Feraligatr decide to shield? Yes, and gets the shield call correct. Opponent now going to send in Primeape. Primeape, a terrifying Pokemon to deal with when the Primeape has a shield advantage. That shield advantage immediately neutralized, but Primeape, the CMP winner, close combat, is going to be shielded up by the Feraligatr. The switch timers are misaligned, which is very helpful because now the clock is up, so you'll be able to actually make a catch of the close combat onto Clefable. That's a very nice job understanding the situation. The opponent unable to switch out, so you have a pretty safe catch. Back in comes the Walrein, and that's a nice overfarm by Clefable, farming up a ton of energy, knocking out with the Swift. And now there's just energy everywhere. Clefable has a move. Feraligatr has a move. It's going to be a Shadow Drapion as the final Pokemon. Swift is reached. Unfortunately, not able to make the Moonblast, but that's still very valuable damage. In comes Feraligatr, and the stored energy from earlier paying massive dividends. Drapion, absolutely devastating damage. In comes Stunfisk. Stunfisk more than happy to absorb multiple Aqua Tails. There's a switch into the Primeape, but Primeape did not rebank energy after that close combat was caught. Mud Bomb picks up the KO. In comes the Drapion. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Clefable versus Cresselia. We have the battle of the bulk in this third match. We should see a very similar strategy to how these other neutral leads have played out. Clefable looking to deal some damage, tanking a move, and then, since the opponent threw instantly and they have no residual energy, then you have a very safe switch into the Shadow for Alligator. The opponent also gave up an early shield as well, and Shadow for Alligator at any kind of advantage is a terrifying Pokemon to deal with. Feraligatr, Hydro Cannon is going to land. That's a CMP tie to a Grass Knot. Feraligatr more than happy to shield up. The opponent will now be on their 5 cycle, but Feraligatr is always on a 5 cycle, so that actually forces the opponent out. They're going to bring in Licky Licky. Again, the switch timers are very misaligned here, so we'll have to see if Danny's is able to take advantage of this. Feraligatr with a no shield, Licky Licky is going to full send a Shadow Ball, and now we see taking advantage of the desync timers, and Stunfisk hits the field of play. They've already revealed Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball, not a particularly threatening move. XL Unova Stunfisk does not do a lot of damage neutrally, but it is monstrously bulky. Mud Bomb is going to land. Opponent now going to bring in Cresselia. Cresselia goes for the Grass Knot, but there's no way this is KOing. They're going to need another Grass Knot if they want to pick up that KO. Stunfisk, another Mud Bomb. Cresselia, it knows it can survive. There's the switch back into Feraligatr. Feraligatr with a nice overfarm there versus the Cresselia, and launching the Hydro Cannon to deliver the KO. Opponent's final Pokemon is revealed as their own Feraligatr. Hydro Cannon is reached. Where does the opponent decide to use their final shield? Not here. They are going to let that go and farm down, but now they've taken quite a lot of damage. There is still some energy available on the Stunfisk. In comes the Stunfisk, not going to fall for the CMP tie, however, as Stunfisk will commit the shield. Stunfisk farming up even more, going for the Mud Bomb. There's a nice catch by the opponent. And this game has had catches galore and switches galore. My goodness. Farming up. There's another catch. Oh my, onto the Clefable. Clefable catching the body slam, and now can look to commit to a Fairy Wind down. Licky Licky was only 2 off the body slam, able to make that move, but it will not KO. Able to get a big farm down, and exiting with the Swift. And at this point, the opponent does not have a win con in this match, as they need to get to 2 charge attacks, one for the Clefable and one for the Stunfisk, and they cannot get there. Swift plus a Fairy Wind KOs Feraligatr, and that game is a win as the match timer counts down to 0. Neutral lead in the next match, Clefable versus the Shadow Feraligatr. And my guess is we'll see it played out to the first 2 charge attacks, as always, and then the safe switch into the Shadow Feraligatr. Opponent's Hydro Cannon is going to land full, sending the Moonblast here, looking for massive damage or a shield. Opponent lets it go. There's the Feraligatr switch in, and the opponent actually decides to stay in and fire off a last-second Hydro Cannon. They're going to look to immediately pivot out and save that 1 HP Feraligatr for a potential sacrificial swap catch later, and now Primeape hits the field. Primeape, oh so deadly at an advantage. We will see the shield from the Feraligatr as Primeape is going to go for the Rage Fist. Rage Fist, oh my goodness. Boosting up is even scarier now for Danny's, as he's going to have to deal with a Primeape that is getting rapidly out of control. Primeape will just go for another Rage Fist. They're going to exit +2 in this matchup. The Clefable is dry. He's almost forced to bring in the Stunfisk, opting for the Mud Bomb, hoping Mud Bomb will be able to pick up the knockout here. Mud Bomb into the Primeape does not KO. There's a switch into Clefable. If it's close combat, the +2 close combat will just KO. We are going to see the shield, but it was just a Rage Fist. This is now a +3 Rage Fist. This is going to knock out. Oh, it actually doesn't. The opponent has an Ultra League Enamorus in the back. Oh my goodness, the opponent bringing out the spice, but this is a CMP tie as Enamorus does make it to the Grass Knot. Grass Knot rocks the Stunfisk. Stunfisk returning fire with the discharge. Discharge into Enamorus is going to land, setting up a perfect farm down for the Stunfisk. The opponent's problem is they have no health on anything. They bring in Feraligatr. That gets farmed down. They bring in the Primeape, and the Mud Bomb is reached. Honestly, even having a potential for a catch didn't really save them because they just didn't have the health needed. And that game got very close at the end, but Danny's is able to escape with a win. Dream lead in the next match, leading Clefable into Zygarde. Opponent safe switches into Licky Licky, and that is one tricky thing about this team. This team does not have a hard check to Licky Licky. But after they reveal Shadow Ball, not Earthquake, Unova Stunfisk is going to do quite well here. So the Moonblast lands, there's the switch to Unova Stunfisk, and Stunfisk is going to look to connect with back-to-back Mud Bombs to pick up the knockout. The opponent, they're actually double nuke on the Licky Licky, so they're not running Body Slam at all, so they have terrible pacing on the Licky Licky, so that's going to allow Stunfisk to fire off back-to-back Mud Bombs, pick up the knockout unless they shield, and maintain that ever-important alignment. In comes Zygarde. Unfortunately, Thundershock is triple resisted here. So the Thundershock's only doing 1 damage. So they are basically healing that Zygarde. And Zygarde is probably going to commit to a full farm down here. Zygarde, these Mud Bombs not doing a whole lot. Able to make 1 final Mud Bomb, so Zygarde is going to exit with a ton of energy. But if the opponent is on the Crunch Outrage moveset, then they're going to be completely walled here. Clefable with the nose shield. Oh, they're on Earthquake. That does substantial damage. And in the back is going to be Gastrodon. Gastrodon swiftly answered with Shadow for Alligator, and this matchup is uncomfortable. However, shielding and Earth Power helps out Shadow for Alligator quite a bit. For Alligator firing off the Hydro Cannon, there's the first shield from the Gastrodon. For Alligator farming up a ton of energy and going for Hydro Cannon number 2. This Hydro Cannon is going to be shielded up. Gastrodon gets outpaced. There's Hydro Cannon number 3. Getting the shield call right on that Earth Power was absolutely massive. For Alligator is going to go for the Hydro Cannon. There's a switch by the opponent and a catch onto Zygarde. The undercharge of the Hydro Cannon. Now Clefable hits the field of play. Clefable building up to the back-to-back Swifts, and that will guarantee the win. As Swift number 1 KOs the Zygarde, in comes the Gastrodon, and that's definitely in Swift range. It just doesn't have the HP remaining, and Clefable is able to KO the final 2 Pokemon and take the win. Clefable versus Golisopod. Not a Pokemon that you see too often in the Ultra League anymore. It is a mon that I would love to get a move update at some point, because I think its typing is very cool. It's just been a little bit power crept. Liquidation does get the debuff. Clefable gonna return fire with the Moonblast. Moonblast is gonna be shielded, and there is that ever-present Gator save switch. The moment the opponent's lead has given up even an inch of advantage, whether it's a shield advantage or whether they take damage, Shadow for Alligator hits the field, as it is so devastating in these mid games. Hydro Cannon will connect, opponent firing off energy. We will see the shield from for Alligator, and for Alligator will be able to overfarm here before it fires off the next move. Opponent not going to let that happen. They're going to switch out and send in Steelix, but Thunderfang Steelix is about to be absolutely miserable as Unova Stunfisk hits the field. They don't build up to an Earthquake. They go straight for the Psychic Fangs. Unfortunately, even a Psychic Fangs debuff is not going to help these Thunderfangs feel any more threatening. Mud Bomb is going to connect. In this matchup, 3 Mud Bombs are required as, of course, Steelix has absolutely massive bulk. Mud Bomb number 2 is going to land. Steelix has actually farmed up a lot of energy. Stunfisk is going to use the shield and gets it right, as it's going to be the Earthquake. In the back is Zygarde. And oh my goodness, is the opponent unhappy that they lost Switch Advantage. With Switch Advantage, they could have potentially had Zygarde on Stunfisk endgame, but instead, unfortunately, they did not have an answer to a Shadow for Alligator save switch with their team, so they were forced to stay in and give up Switch Advantage, and now Clefable is absolutely tearing Zygarde to shreds. Zygarde gets Fairy Winded down. In comes Steelix. Steelix immediately met with the Swift, and this Steelix is already very low. Can it hang on? The answer is yes, but there's the switch to the Stunfisk. Out comes Golisopod, but there's so much energy loaded and ready to go. Opponent is going to resign the match as they realize there's no longer a win con. Oh my goodness, the dream lead in the next match, Clefable into Pangoro. Opponent save switches into a Starmie. What an incredibly cool team from the opponent. A Mud Bomb bait into the Starmie does get the shield. If you're able to double Mud Bomb bait, it does actually save you 1 Thundershock, but my understanding is that if you only single Mud Bomb bait, then it doesn't actually help you get to the remaining discharges any faster. Discharge is now going to connect. Opponent will be able to get the shield back, but unfortunately they were not able to gain a lot of ground out of this mid-game matchup. Stunfisk, I believe, can probably make 2 moves versus Pangoro. It's going to be close. This is the maxed out Hundo Stunfisk, so it's as bulky as Stunfisk can get, and Stunfisk is going to make it to another move. Going for the discharge, it's the less efficient move, but it does do incrementally more damage. Pangoro now deep into the red health. In comes Clefable in the back. Is Drifblim, and unfortunately this game is just completely over. They built up to 5. That is an Icy Wind. That is never ever going to be shielded. Icy Wind not threatening in the slightest, and now for Alligator can very comfortably spam out Hydro Cannons. Hydro Cannon is going to connect onto Drifblim, and unfortunately for the opponent, the alignment in that game was just absolutely unplayable. Hopping into the final match, we've actually got mirror leads, Clefable versus Clefable. Very curious to see how this will play out. Going for the Moonblast, opponent with a nice switch out and a catch onto Licky Licky. Honestly, considering the backline doesn't have a great response to Licky Licky, getting some damage on it while Licky Licky doesn't get an energy lead is actually quite nice. Now Stunfisk hits the field of play, goes for a Mud Bomb, and the opponent has farmed up quite a bit with Licky Licky. No one charge move will knock out here. Here's the no shield, and here's the Earthquake from the Licky Licky. Stunfisk going for another Mud Bomb. I don't know if this is going to be enough to knock out. I think Licky Licky can hold on here. The Mud Bomb is going to get Licky Licky low, but we will need to see one final Mud Bomb connect to pick up the KO. In the back, the opponent has Golurk. We're now going to see an aggressive pivot out into Clefable. Clefable deciding to shield up as the opponent will go for the Shadow Punch. Will Clefable go for a swift bait here? The opponent's not going to let that happen. They switch in their own Clefable, sniping with a Moonblast. That does massive damage. That's actually a very, very nice play by the opponent. Moonblast into Clefable. Clefable will commit the shield. Clefable, unfortunately, going to get this farm down. Danny's only able to make it to a Swift. Swift, not a particularly threatening charge attack. In comes the Stunfisk, just trying to waste some energy here. The opponent will have to Moonblast. They go for the Swift, that's not going to knock out, and they're actually going to throw more energy. A Mud Bomb not particularly threatening here, but the opponent ends up wasting energy by throwing double Swift instead of going for the Moonblast, and now Feraligatr hits the field. This is a nice overfarm by Danny's, having one residual in this matchup. The opponent, oh my goodness, this is a tough shield call. Danny's shields, gets it wrong. It's the Swift. Opponent tries for the catch onto Golurk, and Golurk hits the field. Hydro Cannon is just going to pick up the KO. The question is Feraligatr in Moonblast range? I think the answer is no. I think it's still just too healthy. Moonblast connects, and Feraligatr standing strong in this endgame. Not a lot of HP left, but enough to survive the hit, knock out that Clefable, and secure a well-earned victory. All in all, this team looks extremely strong in the current Open Ultra League meta. The Unova Stunfisk Clefable core honestly was a pretty terrific pairing throughout, and Shadow Feraligatr, specifically the exact play pattern that he used in these neutral leads, was so devastating. Opponents just did not have answers for it. Not switching in that Feraligatr right away, but instead trying to get the opponent to throw energy onto the bulky Clefable, and then once you've generated a bit of an advantage, letting Feraligatr hit the field of play, because Feraligatr, it's the ultimate Swiss Army knife, and it sets up this Clefable Stunfisk core so well. So big congratulations to Danny's. As I mentioned, I think at the start, he's used this team to pretty consistently climb up the leaderboards. I have faced him quite a bit in the Ultra League along the way earlier in the season, so it's a team that he's run a lot, and it seems he's really almost perfected this play pattern. And this play pattern, as we can see from all these wins, is paying massive dividends. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, consider leaving a like on the video and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And an extra special thank you to our channel members here on YouTube. You guys' support helps me continue to do what I do, so thank you oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.